Please subscribe my channel. I remember the day she said it like it was yesterday. The words didn't come out as an argument, or even as a fight. They were casual, almost bored. "I'm not your property," she said, crossing her arms and looking at me like I was suddenly invisible. It was one of those moments when everything you thought you knew about your life feels like it's been reframed, painted in a different light without warning. I didn't respond immediately. I just stared at her. Not because I was shocked, but because I finally saw the truth I had been avoiding. All those years, I had treated her like a fragile trophy, like something I needed to protect, manage, and control. I had made her my responsibility, my problem to solve, my daily mission. And for what? Words like that, simple, sharp, cutting through the entire illusion. She wasn't my property, she wasn't my problem, she wasn't mine at all. It's a funny thing when you realize the way you've been living has been a lie. You don't wake up one morning with a bright epiphany. No, it comes quietly through small cracks. Through sentences thrown across the kitchen table, a tone in the voice, a dismissive glance. That day it came loud and clear, and I chose to listen. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even argue. I just nodded slowly, almost ceremoniously, as if I were witnessing my own freedom being handed back to me. She waited for me to react, to plead, to fight for her attention, for her respect. But I didn't. I didn't because I realized I had been waiting for this moment without knowing it. In the days that followed, I began to observe the life I had been living like an outsider looking in. I saw the bills I had been paying that she didn't even glance at. The chores I had carried like a silent martyr. The emotional labor I had poured in silently, expecting nothing, yet receiving nothing in return. I had been carrying the weight of a partnership that had long ceased to exist as a partnership. And suddenly a choice presented itself. I could continue down the same path, pretending that caring, worrying, and fixing were love. Or I could step back, reclaim the space I had ceded, and stop taking responsibility for someone who had made it clear that her life was hers, not mine. I chose the latter. It started small. I stopped taking calls about her daily frustrations. I stopped worrying about the little annoyances she threw my way, thinking they were my problem. I stopped rearranging my life around her schedule, her moods, her whims. At first she noticed, and then she started pushing. She asked why I wasn't the same man I had been, why I seemed distant, why I didn't react. But I had discovered the power of absence, the sharp edge of boundaries. Silence, when wielded correctly, tells more than words ever could. There's a certain clarity that comes from stepping out of a space you've been conditioned to occupy. I realized that for too long, I had been living in the expectation that responsibility equals control. That if I provided, I deserved loyalty, gratitude, and obedience. And I had been wrong. Responsibility without reciprocity is a trap. It chains you to someone else's whims and drains the very essence of your life. She tried the usual tactics. She became charming, nostalgic, even slightly vulnerable. She remembered birthdays, brought up old jokes, hinted at intimacy. But by that point, I wasn't responding. I wasn't her project, her fixer, her silent servant. I was myself. And for the first time, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. People often confuse this with cruelty, with coldness. They don't see that stepping back isn't rejection. It's recognition. Recognition that a relationship isn't a cage and love isn't ownership. She had made it clear she was not my property. And I was making it equally clear, she was not my responsibility. It's a balance that most men never dare to claim because society trains them to sacrifice endlessly, to absorb every disappointment and betrayal quietly. But there's a lesson in this, a hard one that only comes with lived experience. Love doesn't mean enabling someone else's refusal to respect your boundaries. Marriage isn't about control, it's about respect, partnership, and mutual accountability. When one side opts out, no amount of financial support, emotional labor, or silent compromise will repair the imbalance. The only thing left to do is reclaim yourself. And so I did. I stopped managing her life. I stopped worrying about her choices. I stopped giving space I had already ceded. I started thinking about me, my time, my energy, and my peace. I felt the world shift. Not dramatically, not in a moment of triumph, but subtly, quietly, like the tide slowly pulling away from the shore, leaving the sand exposed, steady, and empty in the right way.